Welcome to the Thoughtful Leader podcast. My name is Ben Brearley. I'm a leadership coach and the founder of Thoughtful Leader. The Thoughtful Leader podcast is all about short, sharp leadership advice because thoughtful leadership is good leadership. Welcome to episode 203 of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. In this episode, I'm going to talk about why self-acceptance is such a big part of leadership and an important foundation. Now, I know what you're thinking. What is this wishy-washy, hippie self-acceptance stuff that he's going to talk about? Well, hear me out. It's an important part of being able to lead effectively that I've worked out over the years. So let's get into the episode right now. Over my leadership career and my time working with other leaders, I've come to realize that self-acceptance is a very important part of being able to lead effectively. It's critical to feeling comfortable in your own skin and being comfortable with your own personal style, strengths and shortcomings, because it helps you to navigate the workplace more effectively and feel better while you're doing it. But I find that many leaders struggle to find that peaceful place of self-acceptance. And many workplaces I've experienced have significant cultural challenges that place pressure on leaders and teams. Unrealistic targets, tight deadlines, too many priorities, acceptance of poor performance and behaviour. The list is endless. In these workplaces, leaders are challenged to succeed even when the conditions are terrible. Upper management will often expect amazing results because that's why we pay them the big bucks, is what they'll say. Now, outside of the workplace, we see memes of amazing leaders all over social media. We see stories of success overcoming all odds. Then we see leadership quotes with 1 million likes. Ones like, leaders should hire smart people and let the smart people tell them what to do. Or maybe this one, the culture is shaped by the worst behavior that leaders are willing to tolerate. But at the same time, in the mind of the everyday leader are challenging thoughts like, I don't feel safe challenging bad behavior in this workplace, or I don't feel comfortable empowering my team because my boss will fire me if something goes wrong. Now, this is one of the reasons why I think it's so important to gain that self-acceptance, to feel comfortable knowing that you're okay, even if the workplace around you is a complete mess. I've coached several leaders who needed pretty much a complete rebuild of their confidence. The view they had of themselves was shaped by the bad bosses and the pressures surrounding them to the point that they thought they were terrible at their jobs and that they were broken in some way. Now, the reality was quite different. These people were good leaders trying to survive in a dysfunctional environment. They'd had success and performed well before, but they just needed to remember that. And there is a related article I'll put on the show notes page as well about why leaders need to build self-esteem, so make sure you check that out. Now, being able to accept yourself is not always easy, but once you achieve it, you'll experience several benefits. Firstly, you'll accept your own style and learn how to work with it. You will understand your potential weaknesses so you can start to work on them where you need to. You'll also accept your strengths so you can bring them to the fore more consistently. You'll be able to work with your team and other stakeholders in ways that enable you to do better work more often. And you might also end up feeling more resilient. The storm will be raging all around you, but you'll feel safe inside your secure bunker of self-acceptance. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes. The difference is you stop beating yourself up when you do. You start to learn from failure rather than using it as a reason to make yourself feel bad. And all of these points help you to become a better role model for the people around you. And without self-acceptance, you'll simply start to second guess yourself. You'll start to believe that you are the problem instead of identifying issues with the environment around you. So this will often encourage leaders to try to work harder instead of understanding their limitations. And the result might just be a broken, burnt-out leader. Now, when I was younger, I struggled with self-esteem issues. Now, I'd believe that I should be like this or like that instead of how I was because I'd see other people and they'd look more confident and I would say, I should be like that person. Now, I still have an enduring, crystal clear memory of something that happened to me when I started primary school many years ago. The school had put me straight into year 2 because my mum had already taught me how to read, so I skipped over year 1. Now, as a result, I was entering a class full of kids who had already been making friends for a year. The kids started to pick on me, and I still remember the chant that one of the ringleaders started in the playground. And they started chanting, "Benjamin's gonna cry, Benjamin's gonna cry." And guess what? I did cry. And interestingly, the ringleader of that group became one of my good friends sometime after that. Now, I look back at that moment and find it quite funny, but it didn't feel great at the time. It was one example that I remember setting me back quite a bit in terms of finding that self-acceptance and that feeling of belonging. But that's enough about me. Let's look at some ways to gain self-acceptance so you can feel more comfortable in your own leadership. Okay, the first thing you need to do is to understand more about yourself. So self-awareness is key. If you don't know your strengths or your shortcomings or limitations, it's hard to cater for them or use them effectively. Now, knowing your strengths has an obvious benefit. You can use them more often, and you can put yourself in situations where you'll be able to bring them out. Understanding your weaknesses is important too, because you can improve them or at least try to reduce the impact they have on your leadership. Now, we don't need to obsess about our weaknesses, but if they are going to continue to cause a problem in your role, then it's good to work on them. If they don't have much impact, then you might not need to worry so much. Now, to help raise self-awareness and understand more about your strengths and weaknesses, you can use testing tools, and I've mentioned a few of them before. So my two favorite tools personally are the Print Assessment and the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And I'll put links to these in the show notes page as well, thoughtfulleader.com/203. Now, another way to raise awareness is via feedback. Feedback is useful when it comes from a respected source, from somebody who will be honest and who is interested in helping you improve. They also need to work or interact with you often enough to be able to provide reasonable insight. And remember that self-acceptance means accepting your shortcomings and your strengths, not just focusing on your problems. Now, I've heard it said that you should go for strengths-based leadership. You should always focus on your strengths. I think that's a mistake, personally. I think focusing to some degree, at least, on your weaknesses can be a great way to avoid big problems and to really either work on some of those limitations that you have or be aware of them so that you can try to make sure it's not such a problem in your leadership role. And if you haven't listened to this one already, I'd recommend going back and checking out episode 164 about not letting blind spots derail your leadership. Now, the second thing I'd recommend is to hang out with the right crowd. And I can't emphasize this point enough. The people you associate with the most will have a tremendous impact on the way you feel about yourself. And this goes for both inside and outside of work. And ideally, you want to be associating with people who support what you're trying to do, can provide constructive feedback, generally have a positive attitude, and are trying to improve themselves too. You want to reduce the time you spend with people who are judgmental, criticize you or others often, or are unsupportive of your goals or aspirations, people who display a negative attitude, and people who tend to play the victim, blaming other people or blaming the world for their problems. Now, this can be very difficult to achieve because you may have long-standing relationships with people who fall into the second category of people who you shouldn't hang around. You might need to have some hard conversations to enable you to step away or at least reduce the time you spend with these people. Now, if you're struggling to find the right people for your circle, you might try joining clubs, groups, or finding a coach or mentor who can offset the negative influences you may be experiencing. When you associate with the right people, they'll give you a point of reference to better understand whether you need to work on a few things or whether your environment is simply not setting you up for success. The next one I recommend here is to work on your self-talk. And self-talk refers to your inner voice and how you speak to yourself. It can have a major impact on your mindset and your mental health, so it's an important factor to consider when it comes to self-acceptance. Now, we're obviously hanging out with ourselves all day, every day, and if your self-talk is dragging you down, it's going to become an issue. And the first step is to notice it. How do you generally speak to yourself? Do you call yourself an idiot for making a mistake? Do you obsess over what you should have done? Or do you give yourself a break and simply think about what to do better next time? Now, one thing that can help is to develop your own set of positive daily commitments, which can help you to foster positive, constructive thinking at the start of each day. And you can learn more about this at a post that I will leave on the show notes page, how daily commitments can improve your leadership. And daily commitments are something that my own coach introduced me to a year or more ago, and they've been really helpful for me. Now, once you notice negative thinking creeping in, you can also start to reframe it to focus on the positive aspects. Now, there are some ideas on how to do that in a post from Psychology Today, which I will link to in the show notes page as well. And the good news is you don't have to be stuck thinking the same way. Your brain is able to change thanks to the concept of neuroplasticity, which basically means that your brain can change and improve. A lot of people have the misconception that you're sort of stuck. You're born, and then I'm someone who worries a lot, they might tell me. And it's like, well, you don't have to be that way. You can change your brain. Your brain is very adaptable if you do the right things with it. So that's great news, right? Because it means that we don't have to play the victim and say, well, I'm just born with this and I'm stuck with it. We can actually make positive change. Now, self-acceptance doesn't mean being naive and ignoring your faults, and it also doesn't mean you stop working on yourself to keep improving. But what it does mean is that you spend less time beating yourself up and more time feeling better about yourself. You'll still need to take accountability for your issues and failures, but that doesn't mean that you're a bad person or a bad leader. And this will give you the ability to resist the negative influences of your workplace. And some workplaces will have many, many negative influences that impact the mental health of leaders and team members in the workplace. And so you want to resist those by building yourself up, building your self-esteem, having that self-acceptance so that you feel as if you're okay even when there is significant turmoil and turbulence around you. And this can give you the confidence to say, well, I'm not broken, but my workplace just might be. And I've been around long enough and worked in a bunch of pretty tricky, chaotic, turbulent environments to know that these workplaces exist and they damage people's confidence, and it can take years to recover from some of the confidence damage that happens in some of these places. So, self-acceptance for me is one of the best things you can do to safeguard yourself from these workplaces, to be able to step back and realize that, hey, I'm okay, but I think my workplace might be a challenging one, and perhaps I should look somewhere else. So I'm very interested in your thoughts on this episode. What do you think about self-acceptance? Have you had trouble in this area? Have you had big confidence issues in the past, and how did you get over them? I would love to hear your thoughts and comments on the show notes page, thoughtfulleader.com/203, or if you just want to drop me an email privately because you don't want to post it on a comment, that's fine too. You can go to my contact page on the website. And of course, if you like this podcast, I would love you to leave a positive review. I'll leave a link on the show notes page for you to do that too. Even if you just take a minute out of your day to do that, it really makes a difference, helps other people find the podcast. And my mission is to create better workplaces by improving the quality of thoughtful leadership out there and helping thoughtful leaders lead better. Okay, take care of yourself, keep up the thoughtful leadership, and make sure you find that feeling of self-acceptance. And I'll be back next week.